Welcome to History with Master Squishies. Today's video will be covering the history of the Pz.35T. We'll be going over who made it, the design, what nations used it, and some of the battles it took place in. If you have a suggestion on what you want to see next, let me know down in the comments. Without further ado, let us begin. The Pz.35T was actually called the Pz.35. It was made by Škoda Works in 1935. Škoda Works is actually a Czechoslovakian company, and the tank was designed to fit the new requirements of the 2A category of light cavalry tanks. This new tank was made to replace the LT-VZ-34 made by CDK. One of the greatest differences between the 34 and 35 was size. The 34 was 8.5 tons with a maximum of 16 millimeters of armor, while the 35 weighed 10.5 tons with a maximum of 25 millimeters of armor. The length of the 34 was 4.6 meters or 15.1 feet. The width was 2.1 meters or 6.11 feet. And the height was 2.22 meters or 7.3 feet. The 35, however, had a length of 4.90 meters, or 16.1 feet, a width of 2.06 meters, or 6.9 feet, and a height of 2.37 meters, or 7.9 feet. Initially, they both had a crew of 3, but later the 35 would have a crew of 4. Under the Czechoslovakian Army, the main armament of the tank was a 3.7 centimeter UZ-VZ-34, designated the A3 anti-tank gun, made by Škoda Works. It had two 7.92 millimeters TK-VZ-35 machine guns, which were later switched in 1937 for the ZB-VZ-37 machine gun. One gun was mounted on the front hull to the left of the driver, and the other was mounted on the turret, which could be coupled to the main gun or used independently. When Germany occupied Czechoslovakia in March of 1939, a total of 244 vehicles were seized by Germany. Germany then renamed the LT-VZ-35 to Pz.35T or Pz.35T. It made changes such as carrying 6 less shells for the main gun to make space for the 4th crew member. Germany also made a command variant of the Pz.35T, which added a radio set and gyro compass. During its service, the Pz.35T suffered many disadvantages, such as the mesh-covered openings to allow access to the engine and improve ventilation by drawing air through the commander's hatch. Unfortunately, this would make winters harsher for the crew, danger of engine fires reaching the crew increased, along with engine noise, and heat increasing crew fatigue. The driver faced one major issue, being that the driver's hatch was exposed to direct fire and was easily able to be damaged from the front. Another major issue was the pneumatic system, which was very susceptible to extreme cold. However, many nations still use this, such as Czechoslovakia, Germany, Romania, the Slavic Republic, Bulgaria, and Hungary. Afghanistan also ordered a shipment of about 10, but it was switched over for this shipment to go to Bulgaria. Next, we move on to the operational history. In Czechoslovakia, the LT-VZ-35 was used in 4 mobile divisions, known as the Reichswehr, between 1936 and 1939. These divisions were supposed to help with infantry in border areas, but they were also heavily used in suppressing violence and protests from the Sudeten German Party. After the Munich Agreement, the 3rd Mobile Division was used to repel Hungarian and Polish border crossers until 1938, when the first Vienna Award was signed, which then they were used to screen infantry as they evacuated southern Slovakia. After the German occupation of Czechoslovakia, these tanks were assigned to the Panzer Battalion of the 1st Light Leichte Division and the 11th Panzer Regiment. They would then participate in Fall-Weiss operations, or the invasion of Poland, on September 1st, 1939. They fought in main battles, such as Willian on September 3rd, Widowa, and Dumblin on September 9th. The Panzer 35Ts ended their participation in the Polish campaign between the 17th and 24th of September in the northern of Warsaw at Medlin. At the end of the Polish campaign, 11 tanks were heavily damaged, but almost all were refurbished by Škoda and returned to the front line. Only one was considered a total loss. The tanks were highly praised by their crews, especially their robustness and versatility. In fact, they were used until the exhaustion of spare parts. After Poland, these tanks would find their way to the Battle of France, which during the ensuing invasion, the 6th Panzer Division reported 45 casualties among its Panzer 35s. Only 11 were considered total losses, and the other 34 returned to active service after being retrieved from the battlefield and repaired by the workshops in Germany and Czechoslovakia. Many of these casualties were due to the exhaustive use. In fact, a single Panzer 35 could cover more than 600 kilometers on their own. Later, the Panzer 35T took place in the initial stages of Operation Barbarossa, or the invasion of the Soviet Union. In battle, the Panzer 35Ts were still effective against the Soviet light tanks, but when meeting the T-34s, KV-1s, and KV-2s, it became painfully clear that the small, reliable 3.7mm gun could do nothing against the armor of these tanks. But, even so, the Germans continued to use these tanks. After this observation by the Germans, all surviving vehicles were sent back to Germany and Czechoslovakia, where some less worn out were remanufactured for other uses. 49 of these vehicles had their turrets and armaments removed, a tow bar with a capacity of 12 tons was installed, along with jerry cans for extra fuel. These vehicles, converted by Škoda, once again served as artillery tractors and ammunition carriers. Rather than waste the turrets, they reused these turrets to fortify bunkers and fixed fortifications on the shores of Denmark. The Panzer 35T also operated in Romania in the Battle of Odessa, Slovakia in the Slavic-Hungarian War, the invasion of the Soviet Union and the Slavic National Uprising, Bulgaria and Yugoslavia, and ended the war in the south of Vienna, and Hungary and Carpatho, Ukraine, and Kubinka. That was the history of the Panzer 35T. If you enjoyed that video, squish that like button, subscribe, and comment on what you want to see next. I'll see you in the next one.